Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline Studio. I'm Sybille Muschik. Today we're going to be talking about the landscape and the layers that we use in landscape painting and printmaking. I want to maybe touch a little bit on art history without getting into it to any great depth. You have a book here, The History of Art. This is actually Western art by H.W. Jansen. You can pick it up at the local library. You could send for it, of course. I use mine quite frequently. As you can see, I have lots of little marks and things. And I think I also dry leaves in here somewhere. So that's, we call it the elephant. Now, Peter Bruegel the Elder was from the Netherlands around 1565. He started painting the landscape, depicting people in their natural activities in all seasons. Now, he was sort of the start. After that, more landscape painting was done. But currently, anything goes. Magic realism to fantasy. For me, I prefer painterly, not really a hard edge. I like to see the brush strokes, fairly realistic, but then, I have abstract leanings, so there's often a lot of that, and of course, negative painting. Now, we'll be working with an 8x10 canvas when we do the plein air painting. And my usual acrylic paints. We'll be starting with background wash, if you like, of color and a bit of gesso. And that will be our base layer, letting that dry. And then in the meantime, I'm doing the dreaded thumbnails. And there we are. And so we have... These will be sort of the thumbnails I'll be working with. I've already done them, as you can see. And then I follow one of them, and I kind of like this one. I was sitting out there and trying to get ahead of the game. So there we are. Now, this is the view we'll be painting and doing a print of. And I will be posting that as usual at the end. So as far as the print goes, it's the 8x10 gel plate, my open acrylics as usual, and maybe a little bit of medium or water. And I've got some little stencil pieces like this I've cut out, and we'll be using some of them. So let's get at it. as I said, here's our 8x10 gel plate. I have put my paper down and taped it gorilla style so that we have everything ready to go here. I have my landscape underneath. We will be posting that. Just a quick drawing of the basics. And we're going to start with our background color. And it will probably, this is quinacridone magenta. I'm going to put a little bit of that on. Wipe off the tip there. And some nickel azo gold. And that should give us a really glowing color. Just roll that out. And basically all we want is a bit of a glow on the paper as a background color. We'll start it with a thin layer first, see how intense it is. And we'll print that and see where we're at. If it's not intense enough, we'll do one more layer rather than having it too dark. But I think it might be just the glow we need. I'm going to do a fair amount of rubbing here to make sure we have it all. And we get quite a nice glow. Okay, I think I'm fairly happy with that. We'll be putting clouds and all sorts of things in, so under color doesn't really matter so much. So I have these stencils, and we're going to be putting that in. I want to save the sky, so we're going to put a sky stencil in. All right. Now, as before, I have put this in reverse so that we get it showing the right way. Because everything in printmaking is in reverse, and you have to think that way. So we're going to protect our sky just by putting this mask on. This paper is mineral paper, and it cuts beautifully for making stencils. It has a really strange texture, and it's very tough. I tried just pulling off a little piece that for the foliage, and I couldn't do it. You actually have to cut it. So that's fine. We're just going to do, let's protect the lake part as well. That just fits right on here. Now I don't care if a little bit of the background shows, so we're not going to be too stringent putting this one in place. It's mostly just going to be bushes, and I'm just going to bang it in there. So okay, so we're going to start here with the mountain. And I'm just going to use some simple brush strokes. And we'll use some cerulean blue, some ultramarine blue, touch of phthalo blue. And we're going to keep it fairly light, almost as if the mountain isn't there. So I'm using a number 6 Winsor Newton University Bright brush. And it's okay if I go over my mask a bit. Just gonna add a little bit more color. Maybe a touch of alizarin crimson. And some burnt sienna. You do have to follow the outline fairly well, because if you don't, the undercolor will show. So at least on the edges, just a little bit more. Make brush marks that indicate some kind of structures, like trees. And you might put a little ridge in there for the difference in the mountains. And maybe add a little bit of white to the piece right at the back end here, just so it's in the distance more. A little bit more cerulean blue. And here's where all those brush strokes will pay off, and you'll be surprised how that prints. Now remove this or you'll be printing the stuff that is and have a mess on your hands. So flip our paper over. Press hard because you really want to get that impression of the mountain. It's a good idea to work from the back to the front. And there we have our mountain. Okay, looks good. Now we protect that and we work in this middle ground. So now our next part has to be the background trees, and they will be considerably darker, just for a good contrast. I'm going to add a little bit of phthalo green here as well, and a touch of purple. We have our burnt sienna here. I think I called it alizarin crimson earlier, but it's not, it's burnt sienna. We'll have to put some alizarin crimson on there. We might need it later, maybe sooner than later. Yes, it helps to make a nice dark color, including black. So let's put it over here. And just a touch. See what happens? It just goes right down. And let's try that as our background trees. I think it's looking good. Hold your brush back a little bit. So I'm still using the blue that's on there. That helps coordinate the colors. And even if we go over top of what's printed already, it won't make that much of a difference. So give your trees layers. This is what our theme is today after all, so make it look like there's rows of trees. And I'm lightening it a bit as we come forward. Maybe even a touch of yellow, a little bit more burnt sienna. Okay, so I'm going to switch brushes here. Well, this is a number 3. Again, the University Bright for Winsor Newton. And we'll use the same color, but we're going to add considerably more yellow to it. Maybe even some of our nickel azo gold in there. We'll see how that works. And some phthalo green is very intense. It will really brighten your yellows. If you add white to it, you get a nice teal. But we're not getting into that now. So these foreground trees are willows that are on the lake. So we have more rounded shapes for that. Again, nice brush strokes. You can paint over top the mask a bit so that you don't have any funny edges showing. And then you can take a smaller brush and maybe add a little bit of shadow. Taking your burnt sienna again, ultramarine blue. Makes quite a nice green, maybe a touch of the phthalo. So just to define some of these shapes a bit more. It's a totally different layer of stuff. So now when you're painting this, you probably think, oh my gosh, it's not going to show at all, but you'd be surprised. We kind of have to establish our light source because this is going to be printing in reverse. Ordinarily the light comes from here, so I'd be leaving this, but we have to think of it in reverse. And so your light source is there. A little bit more yellows. On that side. There we go. Well, let's print that and see where we're at. Again, taking off this. This Baren is really handy. It's my little Japanese printing tool. You see. See, we have nice layers of color, and I'm not too unhappy with the greens. Let's put some of the later colors. I want to keep this as sky tone as well, and maybe we'll just pull some of the greens down as just a little bit of reflection on the lake. Just to give it some interest. You're just basically pulling the color that you had above and then pulling it down. That makes it look like a reflection. You could pull maybe a line or two through it. Don't know if it's going to show up that much, but here we go. That will print just barely because it's very light. Yes, sort of a reflection, and we're leaving some of this nice sky color in there. Now I'm not going to put houses and things like I did for you know, the plein air painting, just because it takes so much time to get all the little bits and pieces in. So this is just going to be plain, and you'll be able to follow it easily, and you should come up with a successful result. Let's try for the foliage on here. Still got the same color, and working ultramarine blue, a little bit of phthalo, a little bit of the burnt sienna, and alizarin crimson just to darken, and a little bit of the diazazine violet. Just a hint of yellow. So we'll do it oil painting style where you're working from dark to light. We're just going to add some background tone. A little bit of foliage here. Let's print that and see where we're at. Good. So there's our foliage. Maybe a bit more dark soap, but we'll put them in after. This is a good middle tone, which is often what I like to start with. So let's get on here with some clouds. We had some nice cloud activity this morning when we were doing the plein air. So I'm basically just banging that in. Color, just a slight touch of the nickel azo gold and a slight touch of the and lots of white. So we're just painting some nice cloud shapes. Again, doing swirly marks. These ones you don't want too sketchy looking. Probably do a second layer to make it softer. We'll see how that goes. You're really going to see the brush strokes to begin with. I might just add some medium here. It will make the paint a little more fluid. Yes, soften things considerably. We'll add a little bit of ultramarine to the bases. And we'll print that. A little bit of ultramarine. Clouds always seem to look flat on the bottom because you're looking up at them. But when you're, say, flying up there, they don't look flat at all. It's a strange phenomenon. And now if you get into our mountain here too much, you can wipe it back. It's a nice thing with printmaking. And we have a few clouds in the sky. Not really so visible at the moment because our light box light is on. Maybe I'll turn that off and you can see it better. Okay, so we need just a little bit more, I think. Turning that thing on and off will probably drive Josh around a bit. It hums and it does very strange things. This one cloud didn't seem to have a lot of character, so we're just going to go over it again. I love these painterly prints. It really is a fun way to work. I mean, I do like stencils and masks and all that kind of thing as well, but this to me is much closer to painting, which I really like to do too, so So give this a shot. And if you're painting along with me, that's great. Good practice. And you'll do it entirely your own way. And please post to the YouTube channel. Yes, now I can see it's coming out better. We'll turn that light box off again later and see what happens. So let's try to see if we can get some cattails in here. Maybe a bit of foliage at the bottom in this corner, in here. So forward greens. Let's just give it a little bit here. Grasses, whatnot you have here. And then you can drop in those lighter colors for leaves into your tree. And you want to overlap the background shore a little bit. You don't want things touching or kissing, as we've talked about, because then you can't tell what's in the foreground and what's in the back. And I want to make sure the edges are covered here. So this is another layer. And we'll give it some really bright highlights here and there. Just dab it here and there. Let's print that. Okay, we have a foreground. That's another layer. And we do want to put some of the bulrushes. The bulrushes have the cattails on them, so we do color brushes, don't we? I think that's what they are. They're a type of brush anyway. So this is always a problem. Now we're going to mix a dark. Here goes our alizarin crimson. And then you start adding phthalo. Ooh, nice color. And some green. We're working towards a black here. And then to gray it out, you add yellow, a little bit more crimson to make it even darker. And that will give our contrast. I'm twirling the brush to give a really nice edge. This is a rigger. And I'm going to, in my preliminary studies, it was really hard to get a nice fine edge. I'm almost tempted to put this in with a painting knife. And we could try that actually. I'm going to be very brave here and try something because with the brush it's very difficult. So we're going to do the lines. I can always erase them, wipe them out, but they seem to be going pretty good. Oops, that one's a big one. speed. If you do it quickly, it'll work. So you're just trying to get some lines with the bulrushes, so we can fix that one, I think, by... Well, this is kind of fun. So if I've got the courage to try it, so do you. And just basically putting in lines. Don't forget to go into the green at the base there. It was way more interesting than what I was doing with the brushes because it was very laborious. Do them every which way. That's how they grow, you know, the wind blows them around and oh, we were thinking of cattails, but these are actually the rushes. We were right to begin with. And then for they have little frondy things at the top, so we'll put a few little... They're seed pods, I think, so. Now, not all the lines are going to print, but it's going to be interesting. Well, that was fun. Ah, yes. Only in printmaking. There we go. So some lines are bigger than others, but I really think it's quite interesting. Now we need to do some branches, stuff like that. We'll use our dark color and add some purple, some burnt sienna. So we can, now I'm going to use my little bridge here. And we'll bang in some tree branches. Now that needs to be considerably warmer. And even though this is a rigger brush, again, let's do the little bit of medium here. It's sticky paint, and I'm just trying it off here on the... We want some nice branches. It's sort of the leaves are... I think this is actually an alder tree, so... And they grow close to the lake. Maybe even a touch of orange, lightening it up. Trying it. And let things cross over, overlap. That's always interesting. If some of you Australian people are watching, it's gum trees and eucalyptus. How many hundreds of eucalyptus trees are there, Josh?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Quite a few. I have a few followers in Australia, so always lovely to hear from them. And I think they're in the height of winter now, their winter. So they're below the equator. So now I don't know if very much of this is going to print, but it's fine. Then with our little brush again, we're going to put some dark trees, tree leaves. Just to give it some depth. And this part's fun. You just sort of go hog wild with little dots. I wouldn't try to make a leaf per se. It's just to, well, what should we say, precious, fussy. We are creating an impression of the scene, not so much a realistic image. Yeah, so some of our branches show up a bit, and we just need to do that final layer of really light stuff. I love my rushes. That worked out really well. And I think we're going to darken this background considerably. That way this will show up more. Okay, let's do that. Since we have these nice dark greens here, and as colors recede, or as you know, objects recede into the distance, they become cooler and grayer, and sometimes more violet, blue-violet. So we're going to just touch up and just get into these and just give it a little another layer of dark. Remember to paint the layers in the same kind of way. And you can indicate through color that one area might be in front of another area. For example, here and here. This is probably behind this one, so this will be cooler yet. Let's even put some cerulean blue in there. And we'll make this one in the foreground. And we'll lighten this one with the yellow. And that will be in the sunshine, right? We're light from there. Okay, print that. Much better. Now we pump up these bright yellows there and in our foliage. And then I think we've got it under control. So in this case, white and yellow. I'm using the yellow opaque because it has more staying power. And we're just going to slap this stuff on. We already have our reflections in, so that's good. I'm making this a little bit cooler. Let's just print that quick and see how it looks. Ah, much better. Now this is going to be darker and more intense. So this is where our phthalo green is going to come in and some really bright highlights. So that's on here. Just to make a good contrast between, it's still coordinating because we're using the same colors. We're not introducing a foreign color. And a fair amount of white. Few little dabs. Don't forget to get right to the edge of the plate here, because that will print. I have a fair amount of margin here. Now, as far as showing a monotype, ideally it should be under glass, you know, with matted and framed. But considering how pricey that kind of format is, it can also be mounted on board, sprayed with a varnish because it is an acrylic, and that will set the paper and make it into plastic. And that's perfectly a good way to approach framing, especially for exhibitions. Oh, nice. Oh, that turned out nice. Okay. Maybe we need a little bit of that down in here. Never ceases to amaze and surprise me. What happens? You know, control as best you can, and then, and that's why printmaking is exciting, and you just never know what to expect. You kind of try to control things, but it's those lovely accidentals that make it worthwhile. So a few more spots on there, maybe up in his corner. Not taking in all respects here. A little bit more ultramarine blue. When you look at mountains in the distance, they're often quite blue, so that's what we're going to. I'm just going to add another layer, very liquid layer. Cerulean blue has a fair amount of white in it, so that should make it opaque. And I just want to intensify the background a little bit. I think our clouds are good. The sky is interesting in that color. And a line here and a line there. And a little bit more. There we go. It might smear a little bit because there's a fair amount of color and it's fluid. And it has intensified things a bit. Now, for some reason, we're lower on here. Some last little touches here, just to make sure. I don't mind some of this pink or whatever that color is showing a bit. But I'm just going to go over this a bit more. And in here, we're just going to touch it up. Oh, and here. Okay, we have a few little which I like, and I like the sky being. We didn't put any clouds in, but you know our brushes are good, and we have some really abstracty leaves and things there. I think it works, so I think we're done for now, and hope you have fun with this. Like I said, post it on YouTube or to the gel plate printing enthusiasts, which I'm a member of, and very happy to see your work. So that's it for today. A long day with doing plein air painting and trying to get this done. But it's at least beautiful outside. We don't have so much rain anymore. We're getting a bit of summer. Very happy about that. So happy painting. Please join me again for another session here at Shoreline Studio. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.